when the mind is led by the heart, it's more powerful. And if we only consider the mind, we miss out on at least 50% of our intelligence, or more specifically, our very unique wisdom, which we store in our hearts through our experiences. And of course, my approach is very holistic as a result of this. It's also very unique because we all live our unique lives.
You are now listening to the podcast where authors inspire listeners to become authors, the Going North Podcast. I'm your host, certified self-leadership trainer, best-selling author, and book enthusiast, Dom Brightman. And you're going to be listening to a different author that will inspire you to join the business of immortality, known as authorship. Now let the fun begin. Today's episode is sponsored by the GoingNorthPodcast.com shop. It is going to help you have northbound direction to your own success. If you want a great inspirational quote like advance others to advance yourself, or today a reader, tomorrow a leader, heck, even some puns like pile on and always fully booked on your tote bag, mug, hoodie, heck, even a t-shirt, and many, many other items, head over to GoingNorthPodcast.com, click on the shop tab, and cop yourself some merchandise indeed. And that's GoingNorthPodcast.com/shop. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, known as the Going North Podcast, we got another super special, awesome human for you today, courtesy of one of my favorite sites on the internet today, known as PodMatch.com, the wonderful site where podcast guests get to connect with podcast hosts. And if they're cool, they're freaking in. And today's guest is cooler than two cucumbers, y'all. That's right, indeed, because we got a multi-talented lady in the place today, y'all, because today's best-selling author, y'all, she's a multicultural, you heard that right, folks, an MC, multicultural, transformational leadership coach, as well as an international inspirational speaker, as well as the CEO of Transform Your Performance. That's right, indeed. So instead of a PYT, it's a TYP indeed. So let's give it up for the radiant and humble Regina Huber. How you doing today, Regina? How you feeling?
I am doing excellent, Dom. How are you doing today? Here we go.
Oh, yeah. It'll be north. That's right, indeed. It'll be
Yes.
north, indeed. That's right, indeed. But my goodness. As you know, with all introductions, they're not allowed to be 7 days, 0.5 thousand years long, and I probably only covered, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes. So mind filling in any cavities I may have missed about you that makes you the Regina that you are today, since your first time here.
Yes, it is my first time here, and there's a lot to talk about for sure. I have led a very eclectic life so far, lots of adventures, which started on a small farm in a tiny village in Bavaria, Germany. And from there, I was just like, my insatiable curiosity basically pushed me out into the world and into this adventure of what we usually call life.
There you go.
So at the age of 19, I moved to what then seemed a big city to me, the city of Munich, and later on to Madrid. And since then, I have not stopped moving, really. I've lived in Spain, I've lived in Argentina twice, in Brazil twice, and here in the US also for the second time, actually. The first time it was California. Then I moved back to Latin America for about 7 years, and I came back to the East Coast, New York City, and currently I'm in sunny Florida. And I spent about 8 to 9 months on the beautiful African continent as well in the last few years, several different countries, doing lots of speaking, training, some coaching, and and so that's me. I wasn't always a business owner. I worked at a global consulting firm for about 16 years in several different locations. And I also owned my businesses. I had my own businesses in Argentina and Brazil, completely different businesses to what I do now, but they gave me lots of wisdom and experience that I believe is relevant to what I do now in my coaching, speaking and training practice, Transform Your Performance.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, indeed. So, what lets all the frequent flyer miles? Did you find a job that involved a whole bunch of travel, or are you one of those secret spies, but you act like you're not one of them?
I'm not a secret spy, but I think I dated one once. So he was very, very secretive and very interesting, I should say, very intriguing. I never really found out whether he had been a spy in one of the previous chapters before we met, but I sure think he was. And yeah, but no, I'm not a spy. I just love to find out how other people live, how they think, how they eat, how they dance. I love dance. I love African music, also Latin music, but right now I'm more into the Congolese groove and some other, Afrobeats rhythms and all the beauty of those cultures. There's so much to discover everywhere around the world, wherever you go. And I believe that it also opens up our horizon, it opens up our minds and our hearts. And it's just a beautiful experience, extremely enriching. And I hope it's mutual, when I go speak to people, and my intention is always to inspire them into their brilliance and to find their greatness, to their brilliance, to self-empower. But a lot of that also comes back to me. It's not just going in one direction. You talk about going north, right? I'm going in all directions with my travels.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Multiple directions, indeed. So, my goodness, what gives you that confidence that you have today? Because I remember reading your book and you mentioned a story how some idiot, well, probably
Oh,
half idiot, almost like destroyed your confidence when you decided to speak up when you worked on that confidence to speak.
absolutely. I took a lot of risks as I was, traveling from country to country and continent to continent. I'm still taking risks, of course, not only in the past. And some of them worked out and some of them didn't exactly work out as I was hoping or expecting. I like to say, sometimes you get the result you want, and sometimes you get the result you need to learn your lesson. So I'm in hindsight, these have certainly been opportunities for growth, not always in the way I wanted to grow or I consciously chose to grow, but it is what it is. And this is how we move through life and we become wiser. The one experience that you are referring to certainly got me to a place of, let's call it darkness at the time. And it was a momentarily place of darkness, though, thank goodness, because I had studied lots of holistic modalities, techniques that could help me get myself out of this dark hole and back into the light. I also had some wonderful friends who helped me through this process, who had studied similar techniques. And gladly, I learned to move from victim mode into a self-empowering mindset through this process. Right. And of course, at the time, I had lost a business. I had lost a truckload of money. I felt like I had wasted time. There's never really a waste in time in life because it's all learning and growing, but it feels like it sometimes, right? At the time, it was a brick and mortar business and it was in Brazil, which means this requires a lot of, cleaning up the mess, especially because there's a huge amount of paperwork, there's a huge amount of corruption in the process, and you never really know when the business is even closed. So that was taking a big amount of my energy at the time. However, I also learned that, when life gives you lemons, you make a whiskey sour and you move on, right? And you mentioned, yes, I had lost my confidence at the time because I think oftentimes it is easier to forgive others than to forgive ourselves. We think we should have known better, but we really didn't know better because it's always easier to see through it all in hindsight. And that's what I also learned, to forgive myself. Okay, it's a really, really important process. Now, at the time, yes, I had lost my confidence. I also, as a result of all this experience, I decided to move to New York City. I hadn't been in the English-speaking arena for like 7 years, only speaking Portuguese and Spanish during that time for the most part. And I had to build a new network. I did not know a lot of people in New York City, and the few I knew were extremely busy and constantly traveling. So that meant that I had to build a brand new network without a new business yet, only a vague idea, and I had to start talking about this idea and gaining clarity for myself actually in the process while I was still flying back and forth to Brazil, cleaning up the mess. It was not a very easy process, but it was a process worth going through. And that's also how I came up with some tools and techniques that helped me through these challenging networking situations. I even also decided to have my own events to just get it going. And it was challenging. It was very challenging, but also helpful. And these little tips and tricks that I came up with helped me. They are, ways to prepare mentally, physically, and energetically for speaking, for challenging situations in business. And eventually, a few years later, I packed them into my book, Speak Up, Stand Out, and Shine, because I figured that they could be valuable and helpful for others as well. I still use some of those tools. I don't need them as much as I did in the past, but they are also helpful when you just really want to enhance your perceived presence as a speaker while up-leveling your confidence at the same time.
Yeah, that's right indeed. Up level that confidence, y'all. That's right indeed, because the book is definitely going to help you to do that indeed. Because I actually was able to read the book from start to finish, which is actually a rarity because I interview so many folks, it's hard to keep up. It's actually pretty interesting. We actually take folks through different processes and activities. Like, hey, like think of 50 things that you love to do to separate you. Like, come on, write them down. Like, get in there, dig in deep, and then you'll find stuff indeed. So my goodness, so what are you doing now that keeps you up and running all over the globe? Because I'm pretty sure you
Yeah,
keep yourself
I keep
occupied
myself
with
busy,
different
that's for
things.
sure. I keep myself busy, and I know you're busy too, so I appreciate you reading the book from beginning to end. It is a how-to book. It has, you choose what speaks to you, what you relate to, you choose those tools, and then you maybe pick a couple or three and do those any challenging situations and make them a routine. I think that's the best way to approach this. Of course, it's also a book that you can read pretty quickly, but the trick is in going back and really doing those techniques and practicing them, right? Now, yes, to get back to your question of what keeps me busy, I always have lots of ideas in my mind swirling around, and it's sometimes challenging to bring them all into meaningful products just because we only have 24 hours a day, each of us, right? And I serve my coaching clients, of course. I deliver trainings, webinars. I just recently did a new virtual session, which is completely customized. I love doing new things, but also sometimes we need to go back and see, okay, we have all these amazing materials already. How can we bring them to more people? And that's also what I'm currently focusing on. And I sure hope to go back to Africa more often again, because I enjoy exploring these countries. I always feel very welcomed on the African continent, I have to say. So I've had very gratifying experiences, for example, working with a team of environmentalists in Rwanda. A young team just had finished their studies. They had their own project. We worked together for about a week. And, sometimes I do these as passion projects a little bit. In that case, it was more like an exchange. It was a workshop against accommodation. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do and go after what really matters to you, right? And at other times, it could be a leadership summit that I'm speaking at, or a conference like I've spoken a few at in South Africa. I co-hosted a couple of events in Cameroon a few years back, brought back malaria with me, but survived it.
Yep.
I'm hardly ever sick, Tom, but when I get sick, it's dengue fever, malaria, the interesting stuff, you know. And I fractured my wrist
Oh,
18 months ago. So only interesting stuff. I don't mind,
ouch.
you know, having a little flu or whatever.
Heck, actually, funny enough, I can't believe I didn't think of this follow-up question a couple minutes ago. But yeah, because I remember you mentioned you had basically two different businesses overseas. You still have them, right? Or is it just one of them?
No, I don't have them anymore. The first one was a bed and breakfast in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Okay.
That was lots of fun, for sure. It also involved dealing with some corrupt authorities, which is not so much fun. But I had clients from all over the world, so guests from all over the world. And I always tried to give them a little bit of a different angle of Buenos Aires. The more open they were to those, you know, that type of experience, the more they got out of their visit there, I think. Like, for example, I would take them to a tango show that was not necessarily available for everybody, right? In a neighborhood that they might not necessarily go to on their own. It's everybody's choice. You know, some things are a little bit less mainstream and they might look a little riskier sometimes, and so everybody has to make that choice and decide for themselves. But I wanted to give people something that they didn't read about in a regular travel guide. And that's why as soon as they arrived at my bed and breakfast, I would take them through an intake session, give them some information so they could move around, know where to go for the practical things, ATMs and so on, but also get the little extra. And I think that's also one of the reasons why I was #1 on TripAdvisor back then of 44, 45 bed and breakfasts at the time in Buenos Aires for most of the time I was open. And then in Brazil, where I had this not so pleasant experience with the business partner, after Argentina, I moved to Brazil. I just decided I wanted to do something different. I also loved Brazilian dancing, samba de gafieira dancing and all of that. And I had been visiting Rio de Janeiro repeatedly for that reason and for some other reasons. Plus, I was getting a little tired of having to spend so much time at home. I love to go tango dancing while I lived in Argentina too, but it was like every time I moved away a little bit further from my home, which was also my business, I was called back because something happened. And, you know, I had an assistant, I had a housekeeping person, but there's always something. And I got a little tired of that after some time, frankly. So I was up for a new adventure and I moved to Brazil. I was again wanting to do a brick and mortar business, a combination of dance classes, which dance is my passion, didn't grow up with it, but I love it, and holistic modalities to help people improve their wellness, right? So it was a combination of both. And that's when I partnered up for part of the business with a not so honest business partner, which eventually led to me having to close down this business in which I had invested more than a year and of course all the money that I'd ever saved. And this actually started out really nicely, but you know, it was just too hard to have the business open without that person's name, which had weight in the market. I'm not going to say it, but you know, it just wasn't sustainable to keep it open without it.
Crazy times indeed. So my goodness, so your love of adventure and just having that entrepreneurial spirit on level 99 at a high level, like how does this play into what you currently do now with your company, Transformational? form your performance? Because I know you do well, you're certified in NLP and the EFT as well. So it's like you got all these different interests and you're helping folks really play bigger in life. So how does all that play into what you do now?
Yes, I did some NLP, I did some EFT, although don't have huge certifications in those. I have done much more work also in body talk, my studies, theta healing, different types of holistic modalities, right? Extensive studies for sure. And all of this has given me valuable insights into how our mind works, how our subconscious works specifically, and also how energy works. All of this is flowing into my work in the form of, for example, a self-empowering mindset and heart set. I like to also talk about heart set because I believe that when the mind is led by the heart, it's more powerful. And if we only consider the mind, we miss out on at least 50% of our intelligence, or more specifically, our very unique wisdom, which we store in our hearts through our experiences. And of course, my approach is very holistic as a result of this. It's also very unique because we all live our unique lives. And while some of what I told you about earlier may not seem directly relevant for what I do now, it all is. All those experiences dealing with corrupt authorities, with corrupt business partners, they have taught me extremely precious lessons, and they have also made me resilient. They have taught me to stand up for myself, to stay in integrity, to never pay anyone off, and rather really stand up for my truth, to fight it. I did win a lawsuit against a group of in the city of Buenos Aires, which was quite exceptional, I believe, because I think, no one had just ever stood up against this type of corruption. So it had never been addressed. And people think it's impossible, but you cannot know before you try. Also, even dance has taught me all these valuable lessons for business and leadership. It's taught me how we can use energy in business, in our business presence. It's taught me posture. It's taught me about how to use our space, how to work with others, teamwork lessons, leadership lessons in the partner dancing arena, where, if a leader does not lead intentionally and with clarity and clear guidance, we cannot follow them. We don't understand what they mean. So it's really the same in business, right? We only can trust leaders if we understand them, if they are transparent about their intentions, and if they are clear. So there's so many valuable lessons just in dance alone, and my passion that flow into this business. And then, of course, a lot of success is based on our mindset. But oftentimes, when we talk about mindset, we stay on a very superficial level. And that's just not enough, because 95% of our behavior is driven by our subconscious. So we think we are in control because consciously we know what we want, but we're really not, because what's in control is our subconscious autopilot. It keeps us on those habits that do not really serve us, etc. Right? So we are also sometimes really, I believe, we are educated out of our potential at school, because we are schooled to be very rational and analytical to fit into the system somehow and to serve the system. But we are at the same time told to neglect our passions and our purpose and those unlimited possibilities. We are not told that we have limitless potential. So we think that there are no other possibilities than what we are taught, right? We are not taught creativity. We are taught to repeat and regurgitate what we're presented with at school. Oftentimes it's more more than education, it's schooling. And we're not taught to be courageous and how to find courage, which is actually in our hearts. Our fear is in our minds and our courage is in our hearts, right? So there's a lot of intelligence and wisdom in our heart. And I believe we gain this through life, through our experiences. Just like sometimes we learn things through our experiences that do not serve us. Like sometimes we, when we're put down, when we are not listened to, when we are somehow diminished, then we learn that we are not enough or that we're not worthy in some way. And this is also learning through experience. But when we look back at those experiences and say, okay, does this still have to be my truth? Because maybe it doesn't. Then we can say, okay, let me do something with this. Let me take the lesson from it, right? And I believe that when we go to our subconscious and find out why we do the things we do, then can also tackle those limitations, those self-limiting behaviors, and those blocks that we impose on ourselves. Because of course we all deal with circumstances and they're not always favorable. We deal with adversity or so-called adversity, right? And it's really about how we address them, with what mindset, what do we do with them? Do we allow ourselves to become victims of the circumstance? Or do we say, okay, what could be a possible solution to this? How can this experience serve me?
Heck yeah, that's right indeed. Sometimes the experience can serve you too. You never know. That's right indeed.
Yes.
That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So my goodness, since you've been doing quite a few interviews over the years, promoting the good work you're doing, help folks get to their next level, is there a question that you wish folks would ask you more often?
A question. Well, sometimes I believe that we don't always honor our passions enough. And I know that some people say passion doesn't matter. I don't agree necessarily, because it's what keeps us going. And I sometimes wish that people asked me more about how I can help them make their passions relevant. Because a lot of times when people come to me to work with me, it's all about, I need a promotion, I need a raise. And these are valid goals, of course. And I love to help them with that. But also, how can I make my work more meaningful, not just to others, but to myself? I love helping people with this question. And of course, when we work together for a little bit longer, it somehow comes up, but it doesn't always come up right away. And I believe that if we all tackle the question of what do I really want for myself through the work I do, then we could just be much happier working people.
Ah, there you go. That's right indeed. And if I'm not mistaken, you help them get beyond just the regular next step stuff with your 3 different coaching frameworks indeed. So is there a 4th one on the way?
There's always something new, but I don't think we need that much more, really, because a powerful leadership transformation framework, for example, is a perfect framework for self-leadership and leadership of others, really. I added the new paradigm leadership framework on because it is really more focused on teams and how we address trust building, how we can build happier and more engaged teams, because that's something that any organization wants, big or small, right? They want to engage their teams, they want to get the best out of them, but we also have to put something into them to get the best out of them. And oftentimes it's simple things. We need to first of all recognize that people are the heart of the organization. Make it a more human focused or people focused approach, and consider our employees' needs and aspirations, but also honor their brilliance. Because if we want to see their brilliance and want them to contribute it, then we have to first recognize it, and that requires a little bit of effort. In the Powerful Leadership Transformation, what we do is we basically consider the elements of 4 different pillars. One is the self-empowering mindset and heart set. The second is your distinctive uniqueness. That includes your very specific genius, your unique brilliance, but also the other side of the coin. You know, what do you want to work on? What limitations do you want to get rid of? What triggers you? All the different things. The third pillar is a body and energy conscious presence. I believe that we don't talk about energy enough in business, but you know, we always say it takes 7 seconds to make a first impression, but it really only takes 0.07 seconds for our brains to figure out whether we can trust someone, and that's about our energy, right? Then the fourth pillar is, of course, related to action, because without action, nothing much happens. And it has to be, though, effective and inspired action, because, of course, we can take action 24 hours a day and still not go north, right? Effective and inspired action is also aligned action, and aligned action becomes inspired and effective through the other 3 pillars, in my opinion. And once we master this for our own leadership, because leadership always starts with self, once we master this for ourselves, we can pass it on to our teams in multiple ways. First of all, through the person or the human that we have become. We're not becoming somebody different, actually, while we're transforming. We're just bringing out the best version of who we already are. I want to make this very clear. I'm not helping people to transform into someone else they are not, right? It's about authenticity. It's about being able to show your authentic self, because you know how now. And then, and secondly, they can also convey this to their teams more proactively by teaching them some of the learnings they have experienced and using some specific tools as well. And then, of course, you know, the new paradigm leadership, it is about new paradigms. It is about what I call a new business consciousness. I've written about this. It is a new business consciousness of love, compassion, and co-creation. I believe we need more of all these in business. And I'm talking about compassion and not empathy on purpose, because I believe that empathy is just an ability, but compassion is empathy translated into an attitude and eventually, hopefully, into a behavior. And that's my distinction here. So I like to be a little bit of a wordsmith. I have studied several different languages, and through that process, I believe that I've learned a lot about the correct use of words. So while I'm not a native speaker and my vocabulary in English might not be as fluent or as rich as a native speaker's, I do like to dissect words and terms and how we use them. Like, for example, time management makes no sense, right? We cannot manage time. We can only manage our priorities, our activities. And I've created some tools to do that. Or work-life balance makes no sense. Or work is part of life, and there is never probably going to be balance. Again, it's about your priorities. What do you want? But coming back to that framework, so new paradigm leadership is about that type of leadership. The heart is a part of it. Again, the heart set, but also the heart in a sense of people being the heart of the organization. Then, of course, the message, communication, trust building, all of it done in a certain way, right? And then the third framework is all around salary negotiations for people who need a little bit of support in terms of mindset a concrete preparation of the salary negotiation conversation and the conversation itself, as well as the follow-up. It's all included in an online course that I created as well. And yeah, lots of people don't really know how to go about negotiating for themselves. So I created this for them.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Always got to admire folks who can speak more than one language, indeed. Because, hey, just having that good old German background from when your back was a we taught all the way to now, where you got four other languages on top of that. And that takes a certain level of brilliance because it's like, hey, depending on where you are, you have to like translate a certain word, probably imagine in your head with the mother tongue and then actually spit it out in the current language for English as an example. And then just having
Yeah.
to learn all of them, especially English itself with the way it is. It's ever evolving and half the time doesn't make sense.
It's not the most logical, especially for spelling, but I'm actually relatively, I'm pretty good at spelling. It's something I've always liked. Yes, and there are other languages that I studied, like French and Portuguese and Spanish, that are more logical, for example, in the spelling, but they have more intricate grammar, especially Portuguese. And it's just exciting, though, to observe this. Italian would have always been my easiest language in terms of pronunciation and everything. I studied a little bit of it. I'm not counting it among the 5, but I sometimes say 5.5, right? Because it would have been the easiest language. And I did use it a little bit during my travels to Italy, whatnot, but not really that actively. And I have never studied it fully, but I did study Latin in school for a long time. Not speaking it. Or at least not anymore. It's not really a language anymore. But it's
all
helped
good.
me for the other languages. And it's helped me with logical thinking, probably, I would say.
Oh yeah, that's right indeed. 'Cause yeah, 2 magical points. Well, actually, 3 of them you brought up, and probably don't have time to get into all of them. But like, of course, with the energy in business, like a lot of folks may think, "Oh God, that's too woo woo." Even though it probably a spiritual experience 3 years ago, it's like, "Meh, energy, can't talk about that." And of course, time management's like, hey, I can't really manage it. And of course, work-life balance. It's like, yeah, work is a part of life. It's like, hey, you might as well do something you enjoy. And if you're around folks you don't like, it's not going to be good for you at all because it's still part of your life and it's not really going to be balanced. They're going to seep in to each other indeed. So, my goodness. So, with the energy piece, like, how does that help you in business?
Yes, you might have heard of Amy Cuddy's power posing TED Talk. Some have, some haven't. It's really also about energy. So she talks about the body. She talks about posture and how holding a pose like this, for example, like something that feels powerful and expansive, can change the way you feel, can make you feel more confident, and can change the way you show up in a meeting. She does it with the example of job interviews, right, in her study. And it's also related to your energy, because your body and your energy are not separate. They are one thing. I personally prefer power dancing because I'm not such a static person. Holding a power pose for 2 minutes is already sort of sometimes a bit challenging for me. So for me, I want to move. I'm a movement person, right? You've seen that. I've moved from continent to continent. I love to travel. And I love to move as in dance. So I like that better. I was even an article in Forbes at one point where one of the journalists wrote about my power dancing a few years ago. But there are many, many other elements to this. Just doing a simple energy exercise and tapping into your inner power and really feeling that inner power, that power energy that you have inside of you, but that might just be a little dormant sometimes because we don't always connect with it or think about it. And just focusing on that, because as you know, what you focus on expands. So if you find that, for example, in your solar plexus, where it's easiest to find for some people, then you can do this simple exercise and it will change how you feel about going into a meeting. And it can also change your presence, enhance it, and make it easier for you to be seen and heard in a meeting. And that is so, so important, especially in these times of Zoom meetings, where people easily get hidden away or just not seen on a screen because of different reasons. Maybe they also don't have the right background or whatnot, or the right lighting, but this is one of the reasons, okay? So as you go into those meetings and just try it out, you will see the difference. I always say, don't take my word for it, just try it. Because in the end, you know, everything is energy, even our thoughts are energy. Well, there's also spirit, of course, because we are spiritual beings in having a human experience, right? But everything we can touch in a way is dense energy. So I believe that science has caught up a little bit in that sense now to the woo-woo, which basically is ancient knowledge, and it's always been used. We have forgotten because, again, we've been educated out of it. Somebody must not want us to know about these things, you know, about our inner power, our potential, about this energy, our creative power. And the energy you go into a meeting with or into any situation, those critical conversations that we sometimes need to have in business, the energy that you go, the quality, not necessarily the level. I'm not speaking about the quantity of energy here now, right? Yes, we need a certain level of energy to be functional, that's for sure, and it helps. But the quality of your energy is what counts. And I believe that we don't pay enough attention to it. Dancers do, because they cannot be without it. If you watch a dance ensemble or dance performance on a stage, if they don't know how to manage their energy in addition to their, you know, their bodies, they even manage their energy through their breath, then they cannot do it in the same way. It's much less compelling. It looks different. It's not drawing us in. And sometimes people have that naturally. We call it sometimes charisma, right? When they walk into a room and you know that they're there, although they haven't said a word, and they, you know, you may not even be looking exactly in that direction. You just see them in the periphery somewhere, but you notice them coming into the room. That's not about their tone of voice, although it's also, everything is important, but it's also not about necessarily their body language. You haven't seen that yet necessarily. Although the energy, of course, flows into your body language and into everything. You know, that's the other thing. I mean, it fuels everything. It fuels your body language. It fuels your posture, everything really. But you know, you just notice them because they have this naturally, but not all of us do. So for some of us, it's a good idea to observe our energy. And we can also observe this through our feelings, because nothing is separate. It is all related. Our emotions, our thoughts, our energy, our body, our spirit. The spirit is always there. The spirit is always there and the energy is always there, right? So I know it's challenging to explain this, because sometimes we make this distinction of this is energy, this is this, and this is this, but really the energy is in everything. And that's the hard part, because we want to contemplate energy as a separate thing to explain it in a way, but at the same time, it's in everything. The human mind cannot easily grasp some of the concepts right away, because rational thinking is valuable, it's helpful, but it doesn't always capture everything.
Yeah, definitely indeed. That's right indeed. Because hey, sometimes you put out a big old net metaphorically, and then you only catch one fish if you're lucky. That's right indeed, as opposed to a bunch of them.
Right. But that's fine. You know, we make a difference in one person's life. something starting to tick differently in their minds, and they just start to question things, or they start to think about things differently in their own way because of something somebody else said or we said, then it's already worth it.
That's right indeed. It's worth it indeed. That's right indeed. Sometimes that may mean just putting some L'Oreal shampoo on your head. Let you know you're worth it. That's right indeed. That's right.
Yeah, put it in your head up.
That's right indeed.
And then rinse and repeat, right?
There we go. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. She's on it. That's right indeed. She's on it indeed. So, Mike, goodness, a fun question for you. If your fabulous book, speak up, stand out, and shine. If that book were a food, what would it be and why?
Hi, it would be a very nutritional food. It would be, I'm not gonna make it Brussels sprouts because not everybody likes those. So I'm gonna make it blueberries. It's good for your mind, your body, your soul, and your energy.
There you go. That's right indeed. And there's even some blue on the cover too. Some blueberry goodness. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. It'll make you very confident and very powerful and very shiny.
Yeah, I love to eat frozen blueberries, by the way. They are my ice cream replacement.
Oh, gotta avoid dairy now, I guess.
No, not really necessarily, but I just, I just love it. And it's healthy, so it's good. And
Well,
it's hot here, so I need a lot of those frozen berries.
uh, I'm sure it's probably you causing that to happen to the temperature.
They're also called brain berries. So we're talking a lot about the brain today and about the mind, right? So yeah, although the mind is, of course, in your entire body, it's not just in your head brain. And the heart is a part of your brain too. But
Whoa.
I guess we cannot cover everything in a few minutes.
Uh, so my goodness, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and that is if you'd wake up tomorrow and you were 25 again, but you're still in the current year, what advice would you give to yourself?
I would tell myself that I have no need for validation by others. That would save me a lot of precious work time because I took on far too much work, and without ever saying no, just thought, okay, give me this too. Yes, okay, sure, blah, 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 and I got lots of interesting work through that. However, I could have let some other things go, and I didn't. And that's how I worked all these endless hours all the time. So yes, if I were again 25, I would say that to myself. The only person that counts is the one you see in the mirror.
There you go. That's
For
right
that
indeed.
purpose, not for everything else. Everybody counts, but for that purpose.
And I was just gonna add the vampire from Sesame Street, the Count. He counts too. Holler stop.
Yeah, no, for sure. But for the validation part, it's what do you think of yourself in the end? Can you look yourself in the mirror?
Yeah, that's right indeed. I look in your mirror and be like, hey, I'm freaking amazing, danggummit. That's right indeed. I do stuff and I know stuff. That's right. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. If you're bald, you definitely shine too. That's right indeed.
I love that you said that. Freaking amazing, because I am actually working on a new project that is all about your freaking amazing life. I think we
Ooh.
all want that freaking amazing life. It's not just about, oh, okay, the next promotion, the next raise, not just the rat race in a way. Yes, we also want fulfillment through our work. We want impact, all the good stuff. We also want to just live the life we deserve to live and we want to live. So again, the question is, what do I want? And then build the different steps toward this freaking amazing life. I even created a quiz. I can send you the link for that if you want to share it.
Oh yeah, that's right. Is it the one on your website?
There is a quiz that I probably shared the link for already, and I can share it again with you, where you can figure out how far you are from that freaking amazing life. And then, just figure that out for yourself and then decide what your next steps need to be.
Oh, okay. So this must be a new quiz then.
It's a new quiz.
There we go. That's right indeed. Well, we definitely got to put that one in the show notes indeed, so that way folks can be like, hey, well,
Yeah.
so where am I on this darn pie of life, the wheel of life here? It's like, oh, yeah, let's see how far. Like, oh, yay, it's bigger than cheese.
Yes, it's always bigger than we think, because many of us is playing smaller than we really are.
That's right indeed. Well, for those out there who are tired of playing like ants and want to play like elephants and keep up with all the stuff that you're doing, what's the best way for folks to do so?
Well, I would be, of course, thrilled to support you. I'm always here for you. My website is transformyourperformance.com. That's how you can also get in touch with me. There's a contact page if you'd like to find out more about my services or about my newsletters. I have a LinkedIn newsletter. It's a career growth strategies newsletter. However, it also has lots of other tips that are valuable for anybody, for business owners, for just really life, I would say, even if you don't work. And I have a YouTube channel as well. It's at Regina Huber. My LinkedIn newsletter is on my LinkedIn profile, Regina Huber. And of course, my book, Speak Up, Stand Out, and Shine, which you can find on Amazon as Kindle or print. And I hope it gives you some valuable nuggets and tips and techniques for you to move through your challenging situations more smoothly, whether it's giving a presentation or speaking on a podcast or just having a difficult conversation or negotiation.
There we go. That's what I'm talking about indeed. Well, you're there right, folks. Head over to Regina's lovely website indeed. Gonna put a link to that in the show notes as well, especially. Also, the quiz too, so that way you can have your freaking amazing life indeed. That's right, indeed. And get a step closer to having that if you don't already have it. Or maybe even up level it indeed. That's right, indeed. Maybe you got the cream at the top, but you don't have the cherry on top. She's gonna help you to have the cherry all. That's right, indeed. That's right. You might even get 2 cherries.
Yes. Not just the cheese.
That's right, indeed. Even though you probably have a lot of folks cheesing, as in smiling big.
There's very good cheese too.
That's right, indeed. So my goodness, any parting words before we close up shop, Regina?
Just always remember that no one can empower you but yourself. The power everybody talks about is already inside of you. Just got to connect with it.
If you're hearing this part of the episode, that means you're one cool individual. Thanks a bunch for tuning in, and if you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to share it with at least one other person in your network. Bonus points for 3. And be sure to check out the backlog too while you're at it, because there are hundreds of wonderful episodes to choose from as well.